Welcome to Living It TV, and I'm Dr. Mark.
And I'm Dr. Michelle.
And we are M&M without the sugar. Don't you like how we start like that? Listen, we're very excited about today's subject matter. It's called gluttony. Many times people have the wrong idea and believe that gluttony is just about food, but it's so much more. But we're all familiar with the health detriments of gluttony. So Dr. Michelle, tell us about some of those.
Gluttony shows up in our clinical practice every single day in so many ways, from just a little simple weight gain, that metabolic syndrome, that little midriff. It turns into joint pains, strains, surgeries, unnecessary surgeries. It turns into blood pressure issues. It turns into diabetes. And what does that mean for us as citizens? It means more pills, 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 and pills.
Did we say it means more pills? That is not a way to live. That's a sure way to die, I tell you. And we talk all the time about the standard American die, and we don't want you to fall down that path. Seriously, many people want to know why they eat so much. What is the tie to that? How does that work? And why do we have such this link to incredible amounts of food? The stomach, you know, Dr. Michelle, is about the size of a baseball.
Yeah, the stomach is the size of your fist. Just think about that logically, just for a moment. If you eat more than the size of your fist at any one meal, unless you're a triathlete or some sort of specialized athlete, you're eating more than you need to eat. That's right, your body can digest about the size of your fist at one time. Your stomach is a fist, not a
bowling ball.
And not a watermelon.
It's getting big, man. That thing will stretch. It starts out this small, but the more we eat, the more it stretches. It's kind of like this big balloon. And think about this, friends. The more the balloon has been stretched over time, the less it gets tightened back up. And that's what our stomach does in general, right?
Yes, the stomach has great capacity. But think about what that does to you physiologically. When all of that excess, that gluttonous excess is coming in, your brain has to deal with that, your kidneys have to deal with that, your liver has to deal with that. That's really no way to live. It's no wonder patients show up in a state of mental fog.
No kidding, and we want you to learn to live. I'm excited about today because we're going to unravel the mystery behind gluttony, what it is, how to get past that for the first time, and really understand what drives that bus. When you understand what drives it, it's a good way you can get it back on track. Remember, don't let your stomach become the size of a bowling ball. That's not what we want to do. We want you to learn to live. And Dr. Michelle, we see people all the time in the clinic that have symptoms of overeating, this thing called gluttony, don't we?
Yes, metabolic syndrome. Biomarkers add up. It's not just a little high cholesterol. It's not just a little blood pressure. It's not just a little low HDL. Each one of those things are additive. And the more biomarkers that you have that are out of balance, it means the more risk you are at for developing chronic disease.
Stop the madness. Stop the craziness. Understand there's a mental and an emotional and even a spiritual link to overeating, this idea called gluttony. And certain times of the year, I will tell you that gluttony is even celebrated. That goes right through me. Stop that nonsense. That will kill you. Do you know, we were talking recently, and it seems like more and more in our world today, people are just so designed to have everything about food. Food! People can't even meet together as families anymore without talking about food. It's almost unbelievable so much food subject we have.
Yeah, just try it for one meal, one night out, to sit and have a glass of water. Instead, we have the chips, we have the dips, we have the soups, we have the breads, and it's not even time for dinner yet.
What about taking a walk as a family? Whatever happened to that? I challenged some pastors recently, and you'll love this. After church one day, try this, pastor. Don't go to lunch. Take your congregation for a walk.
Walk up the mountains. Go for a bike ride. Enjoy Mother Nature.
And that feeds the spirit man and feeds the physical man more than the buffet line down at the steakhouse. That stuff will kill you. We have to stop that, friends, and get off this freight train of disaster. It's kind of like when one train is off the track, this locomotive is heading towards a cliff, and what happens when the locomotive goes off the cliff to the rest of the car?
The cars get derailed, and it is like a domino effect. It becomes metabolic, cataclysmic, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual destruction.
Don't let your life go boom with a bad explosion. And furthermore, don't let your belly go boom with a bad explosion as well. Listen, hang with us. We're going to get this unraveling thing behind gluttony in order so we can all understand it. Stay with us. Welcome back to Living It TV. Listen, I am pumped up about diving into this subject called gluttony. It has been often misunderstood, misinterpreted, and we're going to unravel that for you today. So I am pumped up. So without further ado, let's jump right in. You know, as we always talk about, we use the Bible as our reference place because we believe that's the ultimate authority, and we don't back away from that one bit. God is who drives us. He's our important factor in our lives. He's everything to us. So Dr. Michele has 3 verses that I want you to catch today. They're found in Proverbs 23, verse 1 through 3.
Yes, so just join me now with your Bible in Proverbs 23, verse 1 through 3. When you sit down to eat with a ruler, consider carefully what is before you, and put a knife to your throat. If you are a man given to appetite, do not desire his delicacies, for they are deceptive food.
All right, so I have a knife here. And I did this for a reason, because when you see this knife, it is sharp. And the point behind this is this. When we're talking about this idea of gluttony, we're not just talking about food. We're talking about people with power, and we're also talking about the burden or the temptation of food. So it's really about a draw of 2 things, isn't it, Dr. Michele?
Yes.
Not just the food, but it's more than that.
Yes, just like this verse.
Things sharp.
Dealing with people that have power and dealing with gluttony.
Now, it's amazing. The definition of gluttony, if you've ever wondered, it's not just simply overeating. I better put this thing away before I hurt myself. So don't play with knives. I shouldn't play with knives. Now, gluttony is the insatiable desire for something that will never bring satisfaction. I want you to think about that one more time. Gluttony is the insatiable desire for something that will never bring satisfaction. Is that only about food?
No, that's about anything that has the ability to take us away from our focus. Anything that causes us to overdo.
It's amazing we look at this concept of when we're sitting before a ruler. That's someone that the connotation of this means someone important. And we all want to be with some important people. We all want to be at the front of the line. You know what I'm talking about, the front of the line. We want to be at that seat of honor, that first place, tight with the man, so to speak. They're my bro. They're my brother from a different mother type stuff. And you look at that concept, and we want to be close to that. But when we be close to that, there's a temptation for us to be drawn into that from a gluttonous standpoint. We always want more, more, more. And this is the whole idea we're talking about, this idea of more, more, more. You know, people, our general nature is to always desire more, is it not?
Yeah, and why is that? When you sit down to eat a meal, why can't we just stop with one serving? When we sit down to have a glass of wine, why can't we stop with just one glass? When that box of cookies, let's call it Oreos, is in front of you, why does it call you to eat the whole box? Or potato chips? why on earth does it cause you to want to eat the whole bag? Gluttony, it's our nature. By nature, we are gluttonous. So we have to learn to control it.
Cut the bottom of the bag open. Let them spill out on the ground, and you won't want to pick them up. That's the way to solve gluttony. I just thought of a great solution. We go in the supermarket and start ripping every bag out so it'll spill. I don't know if that'd be a good thing, but I might get in trouble. The bottom line is this, friends. When we look at this, our desire is to want the wrong things, right? We've all been there. When you want the wrong things over and over again, the more of the wrong things you want, that's your normal human nature. And those wrong things will never bring satisfaction, even though the deceptive trap is those wrong things are the thing that are going to make us happy. You know, too much food's never going to make you happy. Too much money is never going to make you happy. Too much power is
never going to make you happy.
Never. It's always about trying to be better than when we're talking about these wrong desires. When we look at this, we got to be careful because this idea of trying to be close to someone can almost become like a bribe in a sense. And that's the other part of this I want you to catch. When someone is close to you, if you take those delicacies and you draw them in, that could be a connotation of that person trying to buy you off. Now, understand about that buying you off. The more they pay you, the more they might expect from you. So it's important to not take that stuff until you're totally offered it. In other words, if this is your desire to want more, which is all of us, put a knife to your throat. And it doesn't mean to like literally take this knife out and put it in. I show this because it's sharp. I was saying, Dr. Michele, don't play with that. She cuts with people every day because she's a doctor. She cuts people. She also knows how to sew them up. That's an important part. But this is a sharp knife, and it doesn't really mean to put it to our throat. Literally, it means to stop the behavior, correct?
Right. We're using that figuratively so that we can get in touch with that nature of ourselves, that gluttonous nature of ourselves that is, we're driven for excess. We're driven for more. And really, what are we really looking for? Is we're looking to be spiritually fed. We're looking to be filled up from a spiritual nature so that we can truly be whole. All of these other things, such as food and alcohol and money and clothing and bigger houses and more expensive cars, they don't ever really make us happy. In fact, some of the most wealthy people are some of the most miserable people. So we become spiritually and emotionally broken, always looking for something else to fill us up.
And gluttony is a trap. It really is. As I talked about facetiously, but it's also seriously, you know, now we look at this concept of gluttony, looking at it like this. Cheating is never okay. Never okay in relationships, never okay in business matters, never okay on a test, never okay anywhere else except in one area. What is that area? Food. Now, why is it okay in food? Why is it looked at, you know, I need to have one cheat day? Seriously. You look at the concept of that and just the words we pick, that cheat day says that we're doing something wrong, but yet we've made something wrong something right. And that's not what it should be, friends. We've got to really process this again and change our perspective on this idea of cheating. If cheating was good for you, then why would it be called cheating? Duh, novel concept, right? So, you know, when people come in and they have that attitude of wanting to cheat, we had this conversation with them. Cheating is not okay in every area but this, and they say, oh, I never thought about it like that. And it kind of freaks them out, right?
Yeah. Well, it's like if you know that sugar is an atomic bomb and it's going to cause your system to age more quickly and it's going to cause certain organs to wear out, why on earth would you ever put an atomic bomb in your system? It's kind of like self-elongated suicide. So we're creating death by our simple actions.
Understanding too that when we talk about this concept of gluttony, if we let that become a norm in our life and we begin to act like this and think that this cheating is okay, even if it deals with food, let us understand that spills over into every other aspect of our life. We begin to think, well, if it's okay here, it must be okay here. A little bit's okay here, it'll never hurt me. Maybe a little bit over here is not going to hurt me. And we go back and forth and back and forth. And it's amazing how that begins to spill over, and this concept of cheating is okay when cheating has never been okay.
Yeah, and we're not barraging or trying to do self-sabotage, but what we're trying to do is to bring individuals home to their own behavior. What are we doing and why? We perhaps just have the concepts a little bit upside down. And if we slow down, we realize that that cheating doesn't really feel very good anyway.
So that's the first thing we want you to catch is, number one, cheating's not okay. And number two, gluttony is not funny anymore. Friends, we live in a fat society, and I'm using that word intentionally, and I get really passionate about this because it is, to me, it's disgusting, it's unacceptable that we have accepted the idea that nearly 40% of our population right now is obese, with another 20 to 30% being overweight. When did that ever get okay? It got okay when we started accepting the idea that cheating was okay. It's okay, it won't hurt us. We have fallen into this unbelievable trap, and it's not funny anymore.
No. And when you really love someone, when you really care about someone, don't you think it would be important to call them on their behavior? When they're 300 pounds overweight, and for every pound you're overweight, it's 10 in your joints. So let's say you're 200 pounds overweight times 10. Just think about the math. What does that mean? It means more joint replacements, more back pain, more pills, more dysfunction, less interaction with life. It just becomes dysfunction. So gluttony becomes dysfunction. So let's love one another, take care of one another, and call people out when we see them hurting themselves with this horrible act that we call gluttony.
Remember, nobody will tell you you're too fat.
But everyone will tell you if you're too thin.
It always happens like that. You know, the thing I find that's just really troubling by this today is, even we were in the grocery store recently and we saw this, we passed through this checkout line, and we did have vegetables. We stayed on the produce side, but I saw this rack of candy bars. It was Snicker bars, I don't mind telling you. Some of you are going, oh, don't touch my Snickers, man. You're getting in my kitchen now. You're getting in my life. You know, I saw the commercial on TV that seemed to indicate that Snickers would correct bad behavior, correct cranky behavior. So Snickers got this bright idea to put on the Snickers bar these words like
cranky, bullheaded, goofball. Well, I personally don't want to think that I'm a goofball or that I'm cranky or that I'm bullheaded. But if we think about the logic of what Snicker bars are actually doing to our health, it is creating crankiness, goofiness, bullheadedness, and eventually pancreatic burnout, which equals type 2 diabetes.
Funny thing, one of the bars said forgetful. Do you know that too much sugar leads to this concept and this disease called dementia? How prophetic that word was. It's amazing that you look on those candy bars, and I even put a little social media tweet out about this. I thought, how prophetic are these words? Eat these things and you'll get these. Enough said. And friends, it's not funny anymore. I'm tired of watching people around us die because of ignorance and not having information to know what gluttonous behavior does. It drains every part of your life, and it always takes more than it ever gives. It pulls from you more than it's ever going to pull back, and it sucks the very life out of you, leaving something called death. Remember,
it's like putting a knife to your throat.
Be careful with that, my sweetheart. You're too beautiful to cut yourself. I cannot have red on her outfit in the middle of a television program. That'd be quite embarrassing. I'm serious, be careful. It's important. Because gluttony in itself, and that's the second thing I want you to catch for, it's not funny anymore. It's actually very, very heartbreaking. The next thing I want to touch on briefly before we step away for just a moment is this. Gluttony is closely tied to greed. Remember, the definition of gluttony: the insatiable desire for something that will never bring satisfaction. When we come back, we're going to talk about that link between gluttony and greed. Stay with us.
When I come home after a busy day, one of the first things I want is a drink of water. That's when I turn to Culligan. Their bottle-less coolers are hassle-free, more sanitary, and better for the environment. Or try an under-the-sink filtering system. This space-saving design filters water for a refreshing taste. And don't forget Culligan's water softening system. You and your home will benefit from better, cleaner water. Culligan Tulsa, your one-stop shop for water.
We are back and we're talking about gluttony. What a deep, deep subject.
It's a deep, deep subject, and we've talked about how cheating is never okay. Cheating just leads to more and more bad behavior. So we've got to get cheating out of our life. If we're going to have a snack or a treat, do the concept one and be done. Stop there. Don't cheat. Because overeating just is not funny anymore. We talked about how our stomach is the size of your fist. Think about that, the size of your fist. So if you're not a trained athlete and somebody who needs a lot of calories and food, think about what has to happen physiologically inside of your belly every time you overeat or indulge in those sweet treats. Your physiology has to deal with that, from your liver to your kidneys and even to your brain. Well, nobody wants to be demented, but we don't take into consideration what all that stuff does to our body when it goes into our stomach. Instead of becoming a baseball, our stomach expands to a
Bowling ball or a watermelon.
And
oh, stop it, it's crazy. You know, it's funny, before we were wiring up tonight, our producer Todd was talking about the washboard stomach, and I think that's pretty impressive. I appreciate that compliment, my brother. That was so sweet of you and kind. But the bottom line is this: everyone, not just me, not Dr. Michele, everyone should have the idea of a washboard stomach, because that's normal. Can I tell you something? That's the way people are supposed to walk around. We're not freaks, we're normal. We're just doing the normal things. You get this concept that we're talking about here. We're trying to turn the tide, if you will, of societal misconduct that's been misguided because of misinformation, and we're trying to turn and change the perspective of this world. You know, gluttony, if you look in the scriptures here, it's amazing. Everywhere in here there's a mention of gluttony. It's always tied to this concept of greed. So we talked about originally how it's going to spill over into every other part of your life. You know, gluttony in regard to food always spills over in regard to money. And does that ever lead to benefit in our life?
usually it leads to self-dissatisfaction and unhappiness. There's no happiness at the end of a money train.
Here's what happens. You begin to think cheating is okay with regard to food. Cheating is okay with regard to food so you can get more food. And guess what the next step is? Cheating is okay a little bit in order to get more money. You see where I'm going with that? Cheating is okay to get more satisfaction, more power, more recognition, more fame. Cheating becomes okay. So this idea of never getting enough and never bringing satisfaction makes gluttony and greed go hand in hand. It's almost like two peas in a pod, like salt and pepper. Kind of like us, like two peas in a pod, my sweetheart. I love that. She's so beautiful. But the concept is this: cheating and gluttony, greed all go together. That's the third part that we want you to catch. Number 4 is this: our stomach, as we talked about, is the size of that.
And if you think about this logically, It takes 20 minutes for your brain to hear the voice of your stomach. So ever think about why everybody goes into the living room at Thanksgiving after they eat and they say, "Oh, I'm so sick"? Well, we indulge, we gluttonize, we put that knife to our throat during that meal, we expand our stomach to the size of a bowling ball, and before we know it, we are sick. So it takes 20 minutes for our brain to link up with the voice that's actually in the stomach. So if we start to slow down, we start to change our behavior, we stop cheating, we stop overeating, and guess what? We have that washboard stomach.
And you can wash your clothes on your stomach if your washer and dryer goes out. It's kind of cool. It's awesome. Wash your clothes in your stomach, hang them on the line. Our beautiful weather we have outside. It's wonderful. Listen, in all seriousness, a lot of people don't realize that link between the gut and the brain. 20 minutes, chew your food. Seriously, chew your food. If you'll chew your food and slow down when you eat, you'll eat less. I mean, we've all been there at a buffet line. How many plates can you really put in 20 minutes? If you're in a hurry, you can put in about 3 or 4 loads, man. It's kind of cool.
Yes, and 20 minutes later, how do you feel? Sick.
Miserable. Bowling ball in your gut, man.
Acid reflux.
Hey, listen, we appreciate you taking time with us today for Living It TV. We want you to connect with us on social media. We have a wonderful array of social media connections out there, newsletter. Get on our websites and look us up. Get our book. Seriously, you've seen the book through the whole program. We want you to get it. It's a bestseller for a reason. There's no coincidence in that. It's not because we're the authors. It's because of the contents inside. We want you to have that as a resource book for life. A practitioner called it the Bible of
Wellness.
Thought that was a kind of a cool compliment. But we want you to have that copy. Connect with us, support us, pray for us, connect with us, and get involved in our community. Learn how to live this thing out together. It's important. We don't just talk it, but we learn to live it. For me, I'm Dr. Mark.
And I'm Dr. Michelle.
And we're M&M
without the sugar.
And we'll see you next time.
Be blessed.
On Living It TV. Bye-bye.